She's taking to the air.
One down!
Looks like dragon territory. Oh, this is gonna be good.
Stop dying, you! Inquisitor.
Looks like dragon territory. Oh, this is gonna be good. Magnificent! everything lit up when it tried to fry us. Now that is a fight. Something's funny about you.
Oh?
Yeah, you talk about Grey Wardens and honor and sacrifice and griffins, but you're still not convinced.
Not convinced?
Yes, you know what I mean.
And you know this because?
I'm a people person.
How may I help you?
I wanted to ask you about the Circle of Magi.
Of course. What do you wish to know?
You must have an opinion of the Templars after living so long in the Circle.
Having opinions about Templars, my dear, is exactly like having opinions about mages or Navarans or men. I have known some who are impossible to endure and some who are utterly charming. I have suffered insults at the hands of those in the armor, but no more than I endured from nobles or tradesmen in Val Royal. Personally, I have found the Templars a useful tool, skilled at keeping more unpleasant elements at bay.
If the Circle disbanded, how can you still belong to it?
The Circle is an idea, my dear, and an idea cannot be dissolved. Many of the first enchanters voted for rebellion, caring little that anything short of a unanimous decision would pit mage against mage. Rather than dissolving it, Grand Enchanter Fiona's vote split the Circle in two. The rebels follow her, the loyalists follow me.
If you led all the loyalists, why are you only First Enchanter and not Grand Enchanter?
Grand Enchanters are elected, and since there are no First Enchanters besides myself, no vote can be held. I could name myself Grand Enchanter, but the title holds no meaning now. When the circles are restored, that will change.
What was it like to live in a Circle?
My dear, your question is the root of all problems with mages. I cannot tell you. Every circle was different. Their Templars were different, their politics unique. And every person within each tower had an experience of Circle life unique to themselves. Some people suffered and some were content. Some were cruel, some compassionate, and some indifferent. The same is true of people everywhere, in all circumstances, whether they are mages or not.
You must have been under constant supervision, being forced by Templars to live in the tower. Was that hard to endure?
My dear, I have a suite in the palace and a wing at my dear Duke Bastien's estate. I've never been forced to live anywhere. Most circles allowed mages to live away from the tower, either on their own or in service to the nobility. All that was required was permission from the First Enchanter. Some circles were harsher in their restrictions. Kirkwall was the worst, but it was the exception. Most were quite permissive, perhaps too permissive in retrospect.
How did we come to this state with the Circles in revolt?
A failure of perspective that infected Circle leadership. Mages lived solely in a world of Templars and mages. They could not even imagine what was beyond the tower walls. Kirkwall gave the world a reason to remember its fear of magic. A mage killed hundreds with a snap of their fingers. Across Thedas, a new tangible fear of magic grew. Commoners and nobles alike called out to the Chantry for protection. But the malcontents in the towers thought nothing of this. They cared only for themselves and for their anger at the new Templar restrictions. When a mage attempted to assassinate Divine Justinia, again, the mages protested the investigation. The leadership chose to vote on independence based on the intolerable conditions imposed by the Templars, sparing no thought to the fact that magic was more feared in the aftermath of these attacks than it had been since Tevinter's day. So long as they had their freedom, they could care little for riots, angry mobs, or about pitting mages against each other.
I thought the fighting was only between mages and Templars. Why are mages fighting mages?
The vote for independence was carried by only a small margin, but Fiona chose to let the motion stand. Those who opposed a rash declaration of war against the entire free world had little choice. By breaking from the Chantry when they did, the rebels declared themselves in support of mass murder. Anyone who did not wish to support terrorism and the slaughter of innocents was forced to take arms against the rebels.
Are you familiar with Grand Enchanter Fiona?
We've met. Before her horrendously ill-timed and selfish vote for independence, I thought her adequate at her job. In her dotage, she could not handle looking after the well-being of so many people. We would have done better to replace her years ago, to let her spend time gardening.
Did they have cause to rebel?
In the aftermath of their terrorist attacks, Was that really the most opportune time to break away? By all means, protest abuses by the Templars. Just don't do it in a way that says mages support wholesale murder. By voting when they did, my colleagues all but declared war upon the ordinary people of Thedas. A war in which we are outnumbered 100 to 1.
Sister Liliana says the guests are on their way. The last inheritances are discovered, and taupe is not a spring color.
What do the people make of us?
There's scarcely a noble house that hasn't openly pledged its support to us.
Any visiting dignitaries I should watch out for?
Lord Nadovino of Antiva, a friend of my family not normally given to politics.
How did you get him to support the Inquisition?
Antivan are touched by worthy deeds, Inquisitor. I impressed him with the rightness of our cause. I also promised him 40 bottles from our wine cellar. He's had his eye on the Tevinter ports for years. It's good to see you.
What's the land like in Antiva?
The setter areas are quite lush. The vineyards run as far as the eye can see in some places. Antiva City, however, perches right up against the Rialto Bay. That's what I miss most. The sea crashing against the maze of the docks.
I have difficulty seeing you wandering around a trading port.
Everyone in Antiva City spends time by the ships, my lady. The finest restaurants and poets all make their habitation by the sea. The waterfront's never still. Lanterns are lit along the promenade, no matter what the weather.
Are you ever homesick?
Occasionally. When a breeze stirs the trees in the garden, I sometimes pretend it's the sound of the surf. Do you know, I even miss those terrible squawking birds infesting the harbor. My youngest sister used to throw whole loaves of bread to the gulls. Silly thing.
Tell me about the Montiliers.
Well, my parents are alive and in good health. They live in our estate in Antiva City. Of my 4 siblings, most attend to the running of the family vineyards. That reminds me, I must ask someone to make sure Yvette attends the spring reception at the palace. My youngest sister has no head for social engagements.
Why are you overseeing your siblings' social lives?
It's Antivan custom. After a certain age, the heir apparent runs the family's estates to prove they're worthy of succession. If you're unfit for the task, the heads of the house, usually one's parents, may decree a new heir.
What do these Antivan heads of their households do if they don't run it?
They work and provide guidance. I've taken advice from my parents. Well, mostly mother. Father's more of an artist. It's rather gauche, but we never can dissuade him from running his own salons. Between him and my siblings, mother's looking forward to my taking over the estate.
Between that and the Inquisition, when do you ever rest?
Delegation helps a great deal. But managing the estate is my duty. As much work as it is, I will not shirk it.
Is running your family's estate that important to you?
I'm responsible for their welfare. A Montilier never shuns their familial duty. Taxing as those duties can sometimes be.
Maybe your siblings could help lighten your burden.
You don't know them. But Lorien in charge, or Antoine, or Yvette? No, truly. It must be me.
Who rules Antiva?
Officially, the Principality of Antiva is governed by His Majesty King Fugelno II. In reality, Antiva's merchant princes rule the country in everything but name. Quite loudly, I might add.
What sort of dealings did you have with these merchant families?
As ambassador, I attended Privy Council meetings in a mediatory capacity. May I just say, one has never heard an argument until they've sat in on 15 princes howling down each other's tariff suggestions.
I'd storm out of any meeting that came to that.
It would be fitting. Dramatic exits are always a favorite. It's all a part of life in Antiva. Our traditions value passion and romance. A certain exuberance of style.
Are you positive you're Antivan?
I can be most exuberant when it's called for. Just at the right moments, and in a proper fashion. Might we speak of something else?
Let's speak later.
Farewell. Inquisitor?
Inquisitor. I hope it helps.
I trust all is well.
Do you have any advice for me?
Treat Dorian with caution. It's possible he could be what he seems. A Tevinter mage wishing to do better than his countrymen. What if he is not? At best, his presence makes the Inquisition appear to have questionable allies.
Can you tell me more about the Seekers?
The Seekers of Truth were born from the original Inquisition long ago, when it united with the Chantry. Seekers stood above the Templars, watching over them but also investigating magical events they couldn't handle. We were meant to be incorruptible, above reproach. How seldom does reality match the ideal?
But what are Seekers exactly?
Those who know anything of us think we are Templars. We do not use lyrium, however. Our abilities are different, as was our original purpose. We disciplined the Templars and were accountable only to the Divine. And not even her, truthfully.
So the Seekers commanded the Templars?
No, the Order didn't assume command until after the rebellion. The Templars have always feared us. When a Seeker arrived at a circle, they knew trouble was afoot. That kind of power is troubling. You begin to think you are the only one who can solve the world's problems. If you don't see a problem, it doesn't exist. If someone insists it does, they are the blind ones.
Do you think that kind of problem could ever be fixed?
Possibly. Though the Seekers themselves would need to change. They were clearly not willing to, even though they abandoned everything they stood for to avoid it. In my heart, I believe they can still be salvaged, but not by their own hands.
How does someone become a Seeker?
Most Seekers begin training in their youth. I was much older, an exception due to my noble birth. We train rigorously for years. Our bodies and minds must be elastic to undergo the vigil, and most fail even then.
Is the vigil some kind of initiation?
It is the rite every Seeker must go through in order to summon their gifts. A full year of fasting, prayer, and separation from all distractions, including other people. We empty ourselves of all emotion, focusing only on the purity of our devotion. And the moment it finally ends, it's wonderful. Faith realized. I cannot put it into words.
Was it some kind of magic?
I don't fully understand it, to be honest. If the vigil was not so arduous, I'd say more should attempt it. What if mages never needed to fear possession by demons? I'm told it is impossible, however. I suppose I'll never know the truth of it now.
You mentioned that Seekers have different abilities than Templars.
Entirely. A Templar's abilities come from lyrium and are designed to hunt mages. Ours come from ritual and many years of dedicated training. We cannot be possessed by demons and are immune to mind control. Useful, considering our role. Seekers can gain other gifts, though that depends on the individual.
What kind of gifts do you have?
I can set the lyrium within a person's blood aflame. Both mages and Templars bend before my will. Some Seekers use it to interrogate, others simply to paralyze. Once there was a Seeker who could use it to kill. That particular gift is considered rare.
Why did your order turn against the Chantry?
We originally united with the Chantry through a treaty that stated they would keep mages under control. It was felt Most Holy had tacitly allowed the Circle of Magi to vote on its independence, thus breaking the treaty. The Seekers saw themselves as justified, and they led the Templars into a war of righteousness.
You sound like you disagree.
We knew what was happening at Kirkwall, where the Mage Rebellion began. We looked into reports of Knight Commander Meredith's harsh treatment of her charges years earlier. But we found so many shocking cases of magical corruption, it was decided her actions were justified. If we'd been there when it happened, if we'd looked harder at the root causes...
You're right. Something should have been done.
When faced with a problem, the Seekers would close ranks and crush it. We would find an answer, but only once we felt we weren't being coerced. The moment the mages voted for independence, our response was predictable. It was difficult to watch.
I've no more questions.
Going well, I hope?
So, who's Scout Harding really?
Me? Oh, I'm no one. Lived near Redcliffe all my life. Herded sheep for my neighbor. When the Inquisition came through my village, I helped by telling them everything I knew about the area. Then I signed on. Wanted to see the world before it was swallowed up by... that thing out there.
Shouldn't you be out there, scouting?
In a bit. We're in Skyhold for supplies and a change of personnel. Not me, though. Indispensable.
What's been going on?
Ambassador Montillier sent me a basket of flowers to thank me for my work with the Inquisition. She's so lovely.
What's been going on?
Varric came by to talk. He told me a story about copper marigolds.
What's been going on?
Madame de Fer said hello to me. Or maybe she was waving at someone else and I just thought she was. Yeah, that's probably what happened. See you later.
Once we were...
Inquisitor, come, have a drink. To killing a high dragon like warriors of legend. I know, right? Put some chest on your chest. That little gurgle right before it spat fire. And that roar. What I wouldn't give to roar like that. The way the ground shook when it landed. The smell of the fires burning. Tarsidathan Halsam. You know, Kunari hold dragons sacred. Well, as much as we hold anything sacred. Here, your turn.
That thing you just said, you shouted it during the fight, too. What does it mean?
Oh, Tarsidathan Halsam. Closest translation would be, I will bring myself sexual pleasure later, while thinking about this with great respect.
You shouted that while it was breathing fire at us.
I know, right? Yes, the second cup's easier. Most of the nerves in your throat are dead after the first one. Atashi, the glorious ones. That's our word for them. Atashi.
Why do you think the Gunari think of dragons that way?
Well, you know how we have horns. We kind of look more dragony than most people. Maybe it's that. But a few of the Ben Hasrath have this crazy old theory. See, the Tamasrans control who we mate with. They breed us for jobs like you'd breed dogs or horses. What if they mixed in some dragon a long time ago? Maybe drinking the blood, maybe magic, I don't know. But something in that dragon we killed spoke to me.
When you put it like that, I'm worried I killed one of your gods or something.
Nah, one of Tevinter's gods, maybe. They worship dragons, right? Kill the shit out of them all you like. Dragons are the embodiment of raw power. But it's all uncontrolled. Savage. So, they need to be destroyed. Taming the wild. Order out of chaos. Have another drink. Nice. To dragons.
To finding the biggest, baddest things in the world and showing them that we're badder.
Anan.
Inquisitor?
What's the current mood?
Willful.
What's the word out there?
Someone requested a dragon flagon. I threw him out.
As you were.
Inquisitor?
Pleasure as always, boss.
Your worship, sir.
Thank you.
Buckles!
That time.
Hello, you.
What do you think about the people who have gathered?
Again with your people. Right, which ones?
Anything to say about Varric?
Varric? Too clever. Always saying something, but never saying it straight.
Thoughts about Cassandra?
Not as buttoned up as she plays, right? Tough, though. I'd stand behind her in front of anything.
What about Solus?
Solus? His head's crammed up 1,000 years ago.
What do you think about our spymaster, ambassador, and commander?
Liliana is pretty in places. Swear I've seen her, too. Or heard she used to play. But that'd be mad. Now, Josephine, she's as good at humbling her kind as I am. Just with less mess. Knows her business, if you have to have it. And Cullen, I suppose if you want a jackboot, you get a big one so you can grow into it. Nice hair, though.
What about Dorian?
He's fun. Could lose a bit more to Vinter.
What's your opinion of Vivienne?
She's a bitch, but she knows. She better.
Thoughts on Iron Bull?
He makes me wonder about things. I mean, what do their women look like? Woof.
What about Cole?
I'm not saying nothing about that. That thing is just wrong.
Any thoughts about Warden Blackwall?
He's too good, right? I'd like to see him out of that uniform. Not like that.
We'll talk later.
Good, right? I'll be here. Buckles!
Shame the alliance with the Chief's people didn't work out. He hasn't said anything, but he's feeling it.
Can we talk about the Bull's charges?
Best company you'll find from here to the Anderfells. In my time with the Chief, we've gone up against everything from bandits to magic trees. We're expensive, but you'll never doubt we're worth it. Want to know anything in particular?
Do the charges specialize in anything from a tactical standpoint?
Bull doesn't want us large enough to work as an army. We're better as shock troops to skirmishers. We've got archers for hitting enemy infantry, Dalish with more archery, and Skinner and her people on the flanks. Rocky handles fortifications and traps, and Stitches keeps us all fighting. They mostly hold back. I'll lead the frontline fighters with Grim, and the Chief goes wherever he can hit something.
You said something about everything from bandits to magic trees. I'll admit to some curiosity.
Right. Sylvans. That's what Dalish called them. Apparently spirits can possess trees, too. Some noble in the Dales, and they really don't like it when you call them Dalish nobles, had a haunted forest. His family had abandoned the land, but he wanted it back. The Chief bought us all axes, and in we went. Between the axes and the torches, the Sylvans weren't too bad. Worst part was the squirrels.
Are there rules for how mercenaries operate?
If you don't want some noble to treat you like bandits, yes. There's also a code of conduct most companies hold to. Keeps things civilized on the battlefield. We accept surrenders for ransom from mercenaries, nobles, and soldiers wearing a lord's colors. Our prisoners are treated well, injuries tended. We'd want the same for any of ours who got captured.
We'll talk later.
I serve, as has always been my calling.
Inquisitor,